All Things Conceivable, a surrogacy podcast with Nazca Fontes.
Listeners, today we are really focusing on the theme of empowerment, and more specifically, empowerment for those working in the healthcare industry. And, the topic is probably something you've heard about or may have actually even experienced yourself. And the topic is compassion fatigue. It's a type of stress that can occur when you're constantly exposed to the trauma of others. And it's especially common for those working in healthcare, emergency services, and community support roles. The weight of others' pain can start to take a toll on their daily lives when folks are in these fields and they are practitioners in healthcare fields. And it can really impact their well-being. It can impact the level of patient care that they're able to offer, and even their own personal relationships with their colleagues and their family and friends. So in our experience at Conceivabilities, many of the nurses at our partner fertility clinics, as well as some of our surrogates themselves, who are also nurses, have absolutely experienced compassion fatigue. But we believe it really doesn't have to be this way. We've recently just launched a program here at Conceivabilities called Empower Nurses Challenge. And through it, what we're doing is we're raising the awareness about this issue and promoting resilience amongst the nursing community. It's our way of showing appreciation for those who support these amazing healthcare professionals and the patients, and also our internal colleagues. I think working in the field of infertility is quite special because on the one hand, it really is about inspiring joy to build families. But on the other hand, we're working with a client base that also comes from a place of pain, trauma, loss, and grief. And so we really do walk a fine line in trying to inspire that joy within others while also protecting our needs and being empathetic to our clients. So while we were researching this topic of how to best support our healthcare professionals, we discovered an amazing professional named Barbara Rubel. Barbara is a board-certified expert in traumatic stress. She's a keynote speaker and an award-winning author on combating compassion fatigue. Barbara motivates trauma-informed professionals to build career resilience, and she is the author of several books on well-being. You've seen her work on Good Housekeeping, Newsweek, Family Circle, Health, Shape Magazine, Fox Business, and The Today Show. And now she's here with us. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you so much for inviting me today, because I am passionate about the well-being and building resilience and just mitigating the impact of compassion fatigue in professionals. And so your passion in hearing that introduction got me so excited about sharing what I know, and hopefully we could bring some peace into a professional's life, because there are people right now listening to us who can't hear one more story, yet they're so empathetic and so compassionate that it's killing them, that they can't be who they want to be in the workplace. And also some are suicidal. So our talk today may even save a life. So thank you and bless you for what you're doing.
Oh, it's incredible. And what's so interesting? Like being in this field for so long, it lacked a label. And compassion fatigue is, a sort of a newfound term, even for me, but for decades being in this field, I have felt this. And so to be able to define it, to name it, to express it, to define it is incredible. So you're so accomplished in this field. So let's just start by saying, hey, for our listeners today who may not be aware of this or feel it, but haven't had the label for it before, how can you share that you knew this was your calling? And then we'll get into exactly what it is specifically. So how did you know this was your calling?
Come back with me to the week of September 11th. I am a hospice bereavement counselor, so there are many patients who are near the end of their life, and I'm holding their hand as they take their last breath, or I'm with their family because I'm also a thanatologist, which is a specialist in death and dying. And so enmeshed in this world of hospice. And then at night, I'm teaching a master's level class at Brooklyn College on crisis intervention. And it was the week of September 11th. How do I teach a master's level class on health crisis when we are living through 9/11 and I'm dealing with hospice patients who are terminally ill? And I'm also facilitating an Alzheimer's group and a suicide loss group. And it was on my ride home from class where I knew I can't hear one more story. I don't want to help one more person. I am done. I'm totally finished. And in that moment, I realized, wait a minute, I'm so empathetic. I'm so compassionate. I want to help. What is going on in my brain that I can't do any more with these people who are suffering because I'm taking it all on?
Mm.
That was how I knew I was experiencing compassion fatigue. But at the time, I thought it was just burnout because I didn't know anything about compassion fatigue. I'm a bereavement coordinator. My specialty is suicide, homicide, car crash death, perinatal loss. I'm a specialist in sudden death. So how what am I doing? What is this? And I love that you said you've been doing this for so long and you just learned about this word. Like, what is this word, compassion fatigue? Well, it's exhaustion from constant exposure to the suffering of others, and it's the negative feelings that you have. It's the way you think, and it really impacts your health. And it involves two things: burnout and secondary traumatic stress. So we all know what burnout is. It's chronic workplace stress, exhaustion, you're really cynical, your anxiety, anger, irritation. We all know what burnout is because we all have it. But when you mix that with secondary traumatic stress, that is the two element of compassion fatigue. Now, the person you're working with is experiencing the primary trauma, but how does it happen? How do you experience the same exact stress reactions because of what's going on in their life? So they're dealing with infertility, but now you, because of their traumatizing experiencing, you're experiencing the same kind of secondary trauma. So whether it is anger, fear, sadness, helplessness, you have the psychological symptoms that mimic their traumatic stress. It's an amazing thing. How does that happen? Just through osmosis?
So, what's so interesting is when you hear the term compassion fatigue, automatically, when I was just researching and learning and really understanding what it is that we all feel in this field, I just thought compassion fatigue might be something where you just sort of switch off the empathy, right? You just say, no, I don't have one more reserve to tap into today. I can't give anything else. But you're saying that the definition is actually something different. You're saying that it's a secondary feeling of loss or trauma or grief.
That is correct. And it impacts the way you look at your life because now it's a short duration. These symptoms are short duration of these. It's an acute stress reaction. So you relive the person's trauma when they were talking about their infertility. You were taking that into your heart. So it shakes your beliefs about the world. Why can't that person, become a mother? Your nightmares, your heart pounds, you're angry, you're guilty, you're vulnerable because of what's going on in them. And that's that secondary traumatic stress symptoms along with the burnout. You can't, as compassionate, loving healthcare professionals, you can't switch off your empathy level. It is almost impossible. I am a keynote speaker. And so I travel all the time going to conferences, and I hear, because I'm allowed to go to the workshops afterwards, I hear where people say, well, we need to lessen our empathy. You can't. Empathy is a part of your soul. Empathy is a part of the core of who you are. The only thing that we can do is figure out ways to help ourselves manage what we're going through. But it's not just compassion fatigue. For healthcare professionals, it's moral injury too. Because in their work with people who are suffering or in crisis or traumatized or grieving, they may be betrayed on what's right. goes against their values and their morals. It like their morals are compromised in their working with people who are experiencing infertility. So that might be something that you did or did not do, something that was done to you or someone else, something that you witnessed, or maybe even a leadership failure. You knew what you had to do, but your supervisor said no way. And so now, besides compassion fatigue, you have moral injury where you may not find any meaning in your role working in infertility anymore. It might be a religious struggle with God, a betrayal, guilt. Maybe you can't forgive the person. You've lost purpose or lost trust. Maybe you've experienced shame. So, we're dealing with compassion fatigue, burnout, secondary traumatic stress, moral injury, and also you might be vicariously traumatized by what your client or patient has shared with you. Vicarious trauma presents a professional challenge. It stems from prolonged exposure to your clients affected by trauma and grief and loss. And over time, you may experience really adverse effects as you witness engage in this person who's suffering. You may not feel safe anymore in the world. You may not have a high self-esteem, relationships, your sense of control, your changes in worldview about who you are because you've been vicariously traumatized. So we need to realize, wow, no wonder why I'm overwhelmed. No wonder why I'm distressed. It's not just the job. It's what the job has done to my heart, my spirit, my soul, my very being.
And what's so unfortunate in today's day and age, Barbara, is the additional administrative responsibilities placed on healthcare workers. It's very challenging to just practice in an organic way. They're challenged in managing vicarious trauma, moral injury, compassion fatigue, alongside of all the administrative constraints and responsibilities and burdens,
Yeah.
right? Right?
100%. When I do my trainings, I do trainings on compassion fatigue, moral injury. And with moral injury, especially the nurses in attendance, they talk about the constraints. And that's why they feel like, I couldn't do what I knew I needed to do, or that other person wasn't doing their job. And that really was upsetting me. Basically, your morals are compromised.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of healthcare professionals, the nurses, and they became a traveling nurse because they felt they had more power. They feel like their power is taken away. And when we talked about before being empathetic and compassionate, when your power is taken away and you can't be empathetic anymore because you only have 10 minutes with that client or patient, or you can't do what you know needs to be done, it impacts you, and it impacts you in a very deep and profound way.
And now that we have this awareness, I mean, particularly from my point of view, it's like we need these workers. We need them healthy. We need them resilient. We need them empathetic. We just need their skill in the workplace. So, the question is, well, what can we do to support them? And from what I understand in your important work is you've actually built this framework, right, of how to better and best support the workers so that they don't experience compassion fatigue. And this framework there's an acronym. It's wonderful. It's called Fabulous. Can you tell our listeners more about your Fabulous framework?
Yes, what I did was I went into the studies, the research. I did a deep dive based on the last 5 years of research for healthcare and mental health professionals, victim service providers, those in the trenches doing the good work. And I wanted to find out, what do studies, best practices, evidence-based studies say about building resilience in these professionals? How do we focus on their well-being? Because it's not just burnout, it's not just compassion fatigue or moral injury or vicarious trauma, it's also vicarious grief. They experience similar grief symptoms of their clients, and it could be due to their own personal history of infertility. It could be connected to their loss narrative. Maybe they didn't work through their own losses. So I put together this framework that starts with the letter F, and it's all about flexibility in the workplace. We need to work with our leadership to create wellness programs and to focus on clear expectations and barriers that impede work, and give them flexibility in accomplishing their tasks and autonomy. We need to keep them in their job. So, what is going to keep a health professional in their job? More job flexibility, because that leads to more job satisfaction, mentoring new employees, more hybrid remote options if possible, team focused tasks to improve social support, peer to peer supervisory things, salary, recognition, rewards, training, definitely improve organizational communication, meaningful stay interviews, focus on more flexible workplace so these employees do not leave. So that's the F. The A is the second component. It's an 8 component model of wellness. That's about your attitude. Attitude. It's rooted in your beliefs and emotions. It defines how you perceive and respond to people, things, situations. It shapes your behavior at work, how you relate to people, how you relate to your supervisor and your patients. And it comes down to your attitude is about sleep. It's definitely, if you have shift work, and so it's so important for sleep hygiene, your room temperature, being mindful that you need to slow down at night, reading, meditation before bedtime, reduce your noise. What else? Avoid caffeine, limit alcohol within 3 hours. So just practice on your sleep because that
I'd
impacts.
imagine too, Barbara, certainly eliminating the screen time before bed, right? That's a big
With
one.
without question, absolutely. There's so many things that we need to do, but that is high on the list of practices. Also, workplace interventions, rest breaks between and within shifts, maybe a shift sequences, change them around, education on sleep, circadian rhythms, understanding sleep disorders, nap strategies, more control over hours. It's like work life synergy, because if you're not sleeping at home, you're not working well in the workplace, and it's so important. What also is important under attitude is practicing gratitude. Wherever you can throughout your day, appreciate a person, a place, a thing. Like, look at it through a positive lens and pause and notice in the moment what's happening for which you can be grateful. It's about cultivating gratitude, whether you express it by a thank you, take a moment to appreciate what you have rather than focusing on what you lack. Don't expect anything in return. Have an act of kindness. So that's attitude. Everybody like, I know when I go to Florida, my son Mikey has a dog, a Frenchie, and sometimes I walk that dog and it's hot and I'm sweating and I'm miserable. I have a bad attitude. But then someone comes over to me and says, "Oh my God, a Frenchie, how cute. What's his name?" And my attitude shifts. So we are in control of our attitude. And like, I just heard you laugh, right? So it is so important to incorporate the moments of joy in your life. Gratitude could become a very emotional, rich thing in one's life. So that's fabulous is FA. And then there's B, which is keeping your boundaries. Oh my goodness. Compassionate, empathetic people give so much of themselves. So what are you allowing? Are you allowing a coworker's bad day to impact your day? Are you not taking sick days? Are you not taking mental health days? Take them. Are you working before or after hours? Are you advocating for others but not for yourself? So you really need to prioritize how to say no. I cannot tell you how many hands go up during my full day trainings on, can you just teach me how to say no? I have such a problem with no. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness. What about I'm not comfortable doing that for you?" Or I can't fit that into my schedule. I just don't have the time to do that. I'm not taking on any new responsibilities. I'm in the middle of several things and there's just no way, or I don't have any more room on my calendar. Just figure it out and say no. Boundary development is so important. It makes you more proactive. You're not overwhelmed. It enhances your self esteem. It lowers your stress level. It sets examples for coworkers. So set your boundaries. So that's the third component. The fourth component is understand job satisfaction, why you love doing what you do. It is about your teams. It is about your positive reappraisal of your world. I facilitate healing. I help people who are dealing with really hard things in life. It's about understanding why you do what you do. And so maybe it's about your making meaning of your role. I help people. I do good. I have a higher purpose. It lowers your mental distress and it increases your physical health when you can find meaning. So it is about mitigating compassion fatigue by finding meaning in your experience. So you could, as you listen today, you could think, how am I making meaning of my job? And how am I doing it? And is it strengthening my family bonds? Am I living life to the fullest? Am I building my resilience? We know resilience is about adapting, bouncing back, overcoming difficult challenges. It's about just bouncing back, where post traumatic growth is bouncing forward. But you can experience vicarious resilience when you are helping someone with their infertility issues. You can draw inspiration from them when you see how they are managing it, dealing with it, growing from it. You understand their journey. You can experience profound transformation and empowerment from witnessing a couple who are remarkably responding to this adversity in life and doing okay. Not everybody falls apart. Yes, we can fall apart, but then when we can bounce back or bounce ahead with post growth, wow, we can also experience that vicarious resilience through self awareness, our coping mechanisms, our strengths, our broadened worldview. But I know I have experienced post traumatic growth and have this ability to bounce forward and experience positive change from things that have happened in my life, reflecting, finding meaning in what's going on from the pre-level trauma, the functioning to growing from it, experiencing personal strength, looking at a new way of life, relating to others, connecting with people, appreciating life, spiritually changing. It's an amazing thing, especially when you understand compassion, satisfaction. When you are satisfied with the level of compassion you are giving to that person struggling with infertility. So that's the four
Yeah,
component.
yeah. Well, I would imagine too, just, with understanding job satisfaction, which this core, right? The letter U, it's also being able to name it, identify it, and seek it out instead of just being a passive bystander in the experience, right? Just the day-to-day work experience of being in these high pressure, very emotional jobs. If you're actively like a heat-seeking missile trying to find the joy, something that brings you satisfaction, I think that'll open your eyes and allow you to see it all around you.
Absolutely correct. But you said seek it out. You could name it, you can identify it, but it takes energy to seek it out. And so many of us do not have the energy to do that.
Ah, yes, right.
And I don't have the energy to manage my sleep. I don't have the energy to eat well. I don't have the energy to be nice to you. I'm done. So that's why it is so important that we're focusing on this today, to realize that this acronym fabulous, that we can even think flexibly, think less rigid, have a positive attitude, create boundaries for ourselves, understand why we chose this field. It's all part of building our resilience, and it takes work. And you know what? It even takes work for the fifth component. As their A component model of wellness, the fifth component is laughter. Some people can't laugh anymore. They're done. But it is a natural mental health remedy. It alleviates tension, it relieves stress, It releases brain chemicals. It improves your mood. Laughter is good. I love laughing. Laughing. It's so much fun. Mental benefits, right? You gain new insights. Physical benefits. It increases blood flow and releases endorphins. But I got to tell you a real quick story. I am a keynote speaker at the National Association of School Nurses in Washington, D.C. There's over 1,300 school nurses. And I told them the importance of going home and decomposing. I thought I was saying decompress. And these and but these nurses, they're so compassionate. And they came up and said, Barbara, I think you mean decompress. And I'm like, well, that's what I said. And they were like, no, you're telling us to decompose. I was like, oh my God. And I started laughing at myself because we all screw up. We all make mistakes. So it's okay. It's okay. And laugh. And I love that you have a great giggle. And it's so great to laugh in the moment and to laugh with someone.
It
Man,
is. It
it
is.
it doesn't get better than that. So the sixth component is optimism. Oh, to be optimistic, to embark on a spiritual life, spiritually forms our basis of well-being, our quality of life. It helps us cope with the stresses of work. It helps us affirm purpose in life. It changes with age, but spirituality, when you're in public service, you're a nurse, you're a social worker, it improves your well-being. It gives you a strong sense of purpose working with those who are struggling with life crisis. And with a healthy state of mind, you're able to perform better. And we also have to realize that we are all connected on a universal scale. We are doing this podcast today. I'm here at home in New Jersey, and you're somewhere else in the world, and people are listening from all over. But we are connected spiritually. There's a presence of connection to something greater than ourselves. We are focusing on ourselves, but beyond ourselves towards compassion and relationships. Because if we focus inward on being fabulous, it's going to impact us in the workplace. And we also have to look at awe inspiring moments. Oh my goodness, just go outside during the day at least twice a day and look up at the clouds and or look at a tree or even a bug flying by. Now, I was in Italy a few months ago and I was in this palazzo. It was a palace in Tuscany. It was built in 1297. And I looked up into the sky. There was a portal. And I said, how many thousands of people have looked through this same portal, looking at the clouds in Tuscany from 1297? It's such an awe-inspiring moment. But if you can't get to Italy, then just look at the sunrise or look at flowing water or the Olympics are on, breaking a world record. Be mindful, focus your attention on the moment and be grateful as we talked about and practice mindfulness. Just being in the moment. Like right now, I'm so grateful to those listeners because you have so much to do today. Yet you took this 30 minutes or so to listen about being fabulous, about, flexibility and attitude and boundaries and understanding job satisfaction and laughter and, all these things. It's so important. So I guess that brings us to the seventh component. And here it's all about being united, being connected, especially from managers. They need to really understand what the employee is going through and understand the incompatibility between pressure at work and family and how work family conflict, what happens at home affects, what's happening at work. And we really need to build and nurture social connections, interpersonal relationships, and get rid of people who aren't real. I mean, I love this quote. It's some people are real, some people are good, some people are fake, and some people are real good at being fake. So surround yourself with people that you like. And then the last component is self compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding and support that you offer a close friend in times of difficulty or suffering. This is Kristen Neff's work, Davidson's work, Warren's work. They talk about being care and concern during a person's life struggle, and just treat yourself with kindness as you are helping them. So basically, understand that you will make mistakes, you will experience failure. You're not perfect, so basically increase your self kindness, recognize that you're part of common humanity, be mindful. Don't be so judgmental. Don't isolate yourself. Don't over identify with what happened. And I so recommend Kristen Neff on self-compassion. And use your strengths to foster self-compassion. We've talked about so much here in this time, but I want to end with knowing your personal strengths, because that will foster self-compassion. That will give you the ability to be fabulous. So focus on how resilient you are, your creativity, your problem-solving skills, self-awareness, spirituality, sense of purpose, social support. My greatest strength is love of learning. So everything that I brought to you today is based on best practices and studies, right? So I love learning. And also my second greatest strength is wisdom. So I impart that. I'm a keynote speaker and trainer. I am living my strengths. And so it is very important to know your strengths, define your strengths, and live your strengths, because if you do that, you will be able to manage your compassion fatigue.
And that just makes so much sense, Barbara, right? Knowing your strengths so that you don't overextend trying to be all things to all people, right? Bring your most authentic self and your true strengths and skill sets to the table, and people will shine. People will absolutely shine in that regard. I have a question for you based on and by the way, what a fabulous framework. I mean, it's straightforward. It's sort of a no-brainer in a way if you pay attention and you seek out how to practice these elements, but it just means not being a passive person throughout the day in your job or your profession. And I think a lot of people do go on autopilot because they're so overwhelmed. So taking a moment, stepping aside, having some clarity, reviewing the framework, for our listeners out there who are struggling, this is key. This really is. And I'm so glad that you shed some light on it. I'm going to bring it into my own daily practice. I think it's fabulous. So thank you for going deep into that. It's really incredible. But I do want to ask you, going back to your story on how 9/11 was this pivotal moment for you, during that time, how has your work been shaped or changed since that epiphany? Because you were already in it, right? You're already, knee deep into this field and this line of work. But how did it shift and change since that 9/11 epiphany?
It made me realize that there will be loss, there will be struggles, there will be crisis around me, and I'm living in turmoil. My world will always have some type of turmoil. Just put on the news in our personal life, with our own struggles, with our family, our friends, our own health. But if I don't work on myself throughout that turmoil in life, I'm not going to survive it. And so we really need to build our resilience so we can live the life that we want amidst the turmoil, right? So build your resilience, know your strengths, surround yourself with good people. I knew it when I was in the car coming home on September 11th and crying and saying, I can't hear one more story. It went against the core of who I was, because I'm an impactful listener. But I knew, work on yourself, take care of yourself, balance your life, appreciate your family and your friends, take care of your health. And Barbara, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, very, very wise words. And you're so right. Grief is all around us, and we'll all experience grief events. And so the better equipped we are and the deeper understanding we have about ourselves and what we need in the moment, the better off we'll be able to navigate that, I would imagine, right? I went through a very serious grief event not too long ago, and I wish I had this framework. I wish I knew about your work. I didn't even know about the word thanatologist before researching you, and it's just such interesting and impactful work. What an insightful conversation today. I also want to make sure that we have a moment to go back to really the core of why I wanted to have this conversation with you. And it is because of our deep and rich network in working with nurses as, kind of the key healthcare provider in our field, and wanting to do something to better support them in this field. What are the consequences for them of compassion fatigue?
I think what nurses need to realize is that there are resources like that online. There are podcasts to help them manage whatever it is they're going through. There are books, there are resources, there are support groups. They are not alone. Compassion fatigue has impacted their life. And now today they're realizing, wow, I really need to do something. I need to read, I need to call, I need to get into counseling, I need therapy, I need a support group. So it is so important to know that you're not alone, that there are people who want to talk to you and talk to you and get you to a place of well-being. 988 is the number to call. It's a crisis number. So when this podcast is over, if you're feeling like you really need to talk to someone, that you're overwhelmed to a point that you may, think about ending your life, call 988. You are not alone. No one is alone. I am so grateful for this, just for this time together. Because yes, we talked about compassion fatigue and moral injury and vicarious trauma and grief and loss and managing life. And it is so hard.
And that's key, right? Tell them how you feel. So many people are reluctant to just open up and express their feelings. They're so scared of judgment or disappointment in others. But, it's like a muscle you have to exercise. Express how you feel. And I truly believe doors open up when you do. Barbara, you have just been such an inspirational guest today. For listeners who want to know more about your work, you can visit your personal website, Barbara Rubel, RUBEL.com, or your professional website where you have a lot of resources, which is griefworkcenter.com. What a treasure trove of help, resources, information, and guidance. I highly suggest our listeners go check both of those websites out. Barbara, thank you so very much for today. I think that this has been one of my absolute favorite sessions to record ever. And for me personally, I just want to express my gratitude that you are in the world doing the work that you're doing. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too. What an inspirational conversation. I'm just mesmerized by the depth of this topic. And, for us at Conceivabilities and our commitment to empowering women to find their purpose and to create meaningful change in their communities and professions and beyond, understanding compassion fatigue and learning how to build resilience is incredibly important for all of us. But I think my main takeaway from this, at least something that resonated profoundly with me, is the need to hold on to optimism. And in her framework of fabulous, the O standing for optimism is so important. When you are experiencing darkness, grief, trauma, loss, compassion fatigue, being able to find the gratitude and the optimism for a better tomorrow, that things always get better, that there's always a silver lining, that there is always someone you can reach out and call, is really paramount to good mental health and success in all of our lives. So listeners, always, always hold on to your optimism. It'll truly get you through. Thank you for joining me today. And until next time, take good care.
At Conceivabilities, we believe that everyone who wants to become a parent can. Our agency has helped build thousands of families for nearly 25 years. Whether you are an intended parent ready to fulfill your family destiny, a surrogate answering your calling, or an egg donor wanting to expand what's possible in your life, we are your people. See how matching matters. Learn more by joining our Surrogacy Learning Center community at surrogacylearningcenter.conceivabilities.com.